Hi everyone, Crista Cowan here with another episode of The Barefoot Genealogist. Today we are talking about doing web searches to discover more information about your family history. Now I use Google as my main search engine, but it doesn't matter whether you use Yahoo or Bing or any of the other search engines available. Some of these tips and tricks are going to work for you as well. So today we're going to talk about how to search for your family history on the web, some of the tools available on Ancestry.com and in Family Tree Maker to do that. And then we're also going to talk about how to filter through those search results with some tips and tricks, and then how to save what you find to your tree. So with that introduction, let's go ahead and dive in. Now, let's talk first about where you're going to find some quick ways to search directly from your tree. You can do this from either your online tree or from Family Tree Maker. So let's start with Family Tree Maker. When you're there and you've selected a person in your tree, you're going to come up here to Web Search. And when you click on Web Search, you're going to have the option over here, you're going to have a little pop-out window. And most of you probably keep this minimized most of the time, but you can just pop that out and you can add whatever search engine you want here, or even any other website. If you have a particular website that you use a lot, you can also search there. So you can add anything you want to this list. But if you do a Google search, for example, you're going to see that it already has pre-populated the search with the information from your tree. So you can go ahead and just click search, and you'll see it's going to do a Google search automatically for you with the information that you are looking for in your tree. So that is in Family Tree Maker. Again, you're going to use Web Search. Make sure you pop out this little side window and you can use whichever search engine you would like. Now, when you do it directly from your tree online, it's a little bit more, it appears to be a little bit more robust, provide you with a little bit more information. You're going to do it from a person profile, and you're going to be looking for this thing called web links. That's what you're looking for. So when I'm in my online tree, I'm going to scroll I'm on a person profile. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom right-hand corner, and what I'm looking for is web links. And see here, there's a link here that says search the web for, and then it has the name of the person in your tree. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and you're going to see here it's going to create a web search for me with lots of different variables. Now let's just look at some of these variables for a minute. Let me make my screen a little larger here so you can maybe see it a little better. Here's what it did for me. It took the full name of my particular ancestor that I was searching for, and it put it in quotes. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And then it said or, and then it put another variation of his name, or, and then it put another variation of his name. So we've got 3 variations of his name listed there. Okay, so that's the basic search that your tree automatically crafts for you. Is it looks for given name, surname, or given name, middle name, surname, or given name, middle name, wildcard surname, or surname given names. Okay, so those are the variables that it automatically searches for you. And you see here I got 9 search results. Now, one of the things you're going to probably notice is that a lot of times those first search results are going to be something from Ancestry.com. And so if you want to eliminate those search results, you can just do a minus sign and type in the word Ancestry.com, redo that search, and you'll see now I'm down to 4 search results, none of which are from Ancestry. Okay, so that's how we do the basic search from your tree. Now, kind of like when you're searching on Ancestry.com, when you're searching from someone's tree on Ancestry, I hope that you use this search records button. And you click it, and it pre-populates your search for you, and you get however many search results. And what you probably do is you probably look at it from this records view here, where you look at the first few records to see if they're really your person. The purpose of that search is just to see what bubbles up to the top of that list. It is not meant for you to go page by page through thousands of search results. It's just to see what bubbles up to the top of that list. You can also click over here to the category view so that you can maybe pull up a couple of categories of records or database specific records that you might be looking for, okay? But that is not meant to be the only search that you do, just clicking to pre-populate. Sometimes you have to do a search from scratch. And so when you do that on Ancestry, you click this search all records here, and you start out with this basic blank advanced search form, and you have to craft a search. And you craft that search based on what it is that you think you're looking for, okay? What you know, and you always are working from the known to the unknown. You start with what you know, and sometimes the least amount of information you can put in to begin with, the better. So you put in a few things and you see what comes up, and then you add some information and narrow your search results. Well, search engines on the web work the exact same way. You're going to put in a few things and see what comes up. So if I put in my surname, for example, that's going to give me 42 million search results. Certainly not something I want to go through. So then I'm going to add the word genealogy and see what comes up. Okay, now I'm down to 217 search results. A lot of these are probably going to be me because I have a lot to do with the genealogy community, so I can actually remove anything that references me by first name, and what I'm left with then are 203 search results where Cowan and genealogy show up on the page. And now I can go through those search results and see if anything is pertinent to what it is that I'm looking for about my family history. Okay, so it's the same concept as when you're doing a search on Ancestry and you're doing a search on the web. You start broad and you work your way down, narrowing your search results by adding or removing certain things or making certain things exact or not. So let's look at what some of the facilities are to enable you to do that. Because I spend a lot of time on the Ancestry.com Facebook page and in our group, and every once in a while somebody will say, well, just try Googling that. And people will come back and say, well, I did, and yet they're not finding what they're looking for. And so here are some of the best tips and tricks I have for finding what you're really looking for when you're using search engines. First one is use the minus sign to remove things. So if, for example, you have somebody who has a famous name, or you have somebody who has, for example, I have a cousin who has the same name as a NASCAR driver. And so anytime I do a search for that cousin, I have to do minus NASCAR to remove all those NASCAR results from my search results. So you can use the minus sign to remove things from your search results in a search engine. You can use the plus sign to add things. So you saw how I added Google or genealogy, for example. You can do the same thing for family history. As a matter of fact, I could come right back over here to this search and I could say, and family history, and add in some additional search results for what I'm looking for there. Okay, that brings me to another point, which is use quote marks to keep words together. So if I just did family history here, I would get different search results. As a matter of fact, I have 2.1 million search results here, as opposed to putting this in quotes. Now I have 1,800 search results. Okay, what quotes does is it forces those two words, family and history, to be stuck together. Without them, it just returns anything where those two words exist on the same page. And so how this works for your ancestors, right, is you're going to do things like George Cowan, right? That's going to look for anybody with that name. Now, the next thing you can do is you can use an asterisk as a wild card. So for example, I know my ancestor has a middle name, but I don't know if he's going to be recorded by his middle name or not. And so I can use an asterisk in between those two words to look for those two words in close proximity to each other with a word or two in between, or an initial in between. Okay? Now, the other thing I can do is I can use an or feature. Okay? Or means I want to find this, or I want to find this. Now, what I've done is I've looked for instances of George Cowan. I'm also looking for instances of Cowan George, because sometimes information is recorded, particularly in indexes and lists and those kinds of things that I might be looking for. It's going to be recorded last name first. And so it allows me to search for both of those variables. So you can use OR to look for variations, use an asterisk as a wild card. And then this is a really underutilized feature. If you happen to know, for example, when your ancestor was born and when they died, put those 2 years in there with 2 dots in between. What that does is it will search for every year within that range, right? So it won't necessarily search for, if you want to search for them just by their birth year or just by their death year, just put in the 1 year. But if you want to search for any year in between those two, use 2 dots and pull that up that way. So for example, I could do 1780 ... 1852. Okay, and it would bring up any year in between. Here you can see I've got an 1845, 1847, 1787, 1834. All of those are coming up in my search results because they fall in this year range. Now, if I just wanted the 1 year, if I was looking for him specifically with a reference to his birth year, I could just put in that 1 year, and here he comes up with that particular year. Okay. So play around with those a little bit, see what you can discover. But that is always really exciting to me to see. Again, search iteration is something that I hope that you're very familiar with. And if you're not, get used to it. The point of searching is to play around with different search variables to see what kinds of things come up. Okay, now this is what we call a web search on Google. And it's going to return all sorts of things from all over the web. However, Google has some really cool features that are additional to that. Right here under this More button, you're going to see that they also have a selection of books. Google has digitized a lot of books, and the books that they haven't been able to digitize, they've at least indexed with some kind of a preview or some kind of notation. They've digitized the books and they can surface the information. They just can't show you the whole book because of copyright. So here's an example. This is a book called Marriages of Rowan County, North Carolina from 1753 to 1868. It was published in 1981 and there is a preview of it available. So what Google has done is they have searched the entire book because they've digitized the whole thing. They've searched the entire book for my search terms. It's come back and said, yes, we have this information in this book. But it can't show me the whole book because the book's under copyright. So the point is just to show me that the book exists and that the information I'm looking for exists. And you'll find all sorts of things. Here's one, Georgia Pioneers, Athens, Georgia newspaper abstracts. I mean, there is all sorts of really great genealogical books that you can find. And again, you're going to find that under More, and then you're going to look for that books link. This is another situation where sometimes less is more. If I put in just a few words, I'll see other things that might exist here. And one of the things you're going to discover is that sometimes the entire book is available. For example, this book was written in 1916, which means that it's likely out of copyright. And so if I click on it, you're going to see I actually have the whole book available to me. So I can read this book page by page, just like I would any other book. Or I can actually, even in this case, download the ebook so that I have it on my computer so that I can use it as a reference if this happens to be information about my particular family. So use Google Books. You might be surprised at what you discover there. There's some really, really cool things available. But again, get creative in your searching. Think about different things that might be included. So I might be looking for Lawrence genealogy, but particularly I'm looking for Lawrence genealogy in Georgia. And now that shows me a different set of search results. Okay, if I want to be more specific, I can come in here and use my quote marks, and I'm looking specifically for information about the Henry Lawrence family. And that then provides me with more specific search results. Okay. And There's the book that I happen to be looking for, okay? And then, like I said, sometimes these books are out of copyright, in which case Google can provide me with the whole book. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're still under copyright, in which case Google will often provide you with little snippets of information, but then links available to where you can either purchase the book or if you can find it in a library. And anytime you can find a book in a library, of course, that's a great thing. Most libraries will do interlibrary loan, so even if it's not in a library near you, you can still access it. Okay, so that is, let me just review these really quickly. You're going to use a minus sign to remove things. That's if you see a lot of common words that are not what you're looking for in your search results. You can use the plus sign to add things or just add words. Use quote marks to keep words together. Use or to look for variations. So you're going to use that in between two words or phrases to look for variations. You're going to use an asterisk as a wildcard, and you can put dots between years in order to discover specific numbers. Now, let's say you find something of interest on the internet that you want to attach to your family or that you're interested in, that you think is really for your people. So let's say here's this book, and this particular article in this book happens to be about my ancestor, and so I want to make sure that I capture this page or this information. There are a couple of different things you can do. In this case, because it's an ebook, I could just download the book and keep a copy of that on my hard drive. However, if it was a web link or some kind of a web page, I might want to have a different way to view that information. Okay, and so let's say here I've got this Descendants of Henry Lawrence, and it's a page of information about Henry Lawrence and his descendants. So I could copy this URL. So the URL is what's up here in the address bar on your web browser. So I'm going to highlight it, and then I'm going to copy it. And there's two ways you can do that. On a PC, it's going to be Control-C, or if you right-click, you have the option to copy. So you highlight it and copy. And then I'm going to come back over here to my tree. I'm going to find the appropriate person in my tree that this is going to pertain to. Let's just use George here as an example. And then I'm going to scroll down to those web links, and I'm going to add a link. Okay, and so then I'm going to paste that URL right into this web address. So again, you're going to either Control-V on your keyboard or right-click and paste. And that's going to, as you see here, copied the URL. I just scroll through this URL here. It copied the URL here from here, okay? And then I can give this particular web link a title. So for example, I can say Descendants of Henry Lawrence, and I can click Save. And now what that does is it saves a link on this person on my tree to this page on the internet, okay? So it's making a connection. So I'm not copying it. I'm not pulling copyrighted information from somebody else's web page into my tree. I'm just making a link from my tree, from a specific person in my tree, to a specific page on the internet that has information that might be of interest to me. And you can do that with any page online anywhere on the internet. You just add a web link or add a link here under web links to that person. So let me just review that again. When you find something relevant to your family history, be sure to create a web link on the person profile so that you can find it again quickly. I find that that's a lot easier. I know a lot of you have been having conversations about, keeping notebooks and using OneNote and Evernote, and I certainly do use those for my research. Usually it's for working things that I am not sure about how to put into my tree yet, or I'm trying to sort out people on tax lists, or there's a lot of different ways that I use OneNote, but I use web links more often than just trying to keep a list of links somewhere in some other format. It's just an easy way to keep things right there all together with my tree. So that is just a few tips about Googling your family history. I'd love to hear. I'll be on chat immediately following this presentation today at our regular time. And I'd love to hear more about the ways in which you use Google to locate information about your family history. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, please feel free to leave a comment for others about other tips and tricks you might have for doing successful web searches for your ancestors. Until next time, this is Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.